We are God. God just wanted to go to the movies. You have some kind of influence over what you're seeing. They went into this hellish kind of environment. But I think you create that because of your fear.
What do you think about pre-birth memories? What if our whole universe is inside of a larger being? Oh no, I broke one of God's rules. They're starting to imagine themselves, burning alive. Welcome everyone to our Sliver of Time. Today we have a very special guest, Robert Christopher Copez, who is a near-death experience researcher. And today we're going to talk about some of his most interesting findings in his research, as well as is near death experiences turning into a religion? It's going to be an interesting talk, and we're so happy to have you on, Robert. Thanks for coming on the show.
Thank you for having me. It's wonderful to be with you. Thank you.
Of course, of course, and we have you all the way from Amsterdam, so it's going to be an awesome time. So you got into near death experiences by reading Dr. Raymond Moody's book, I believe. And
Yeah, that's true.
I suppose my first question is, was that something you were already pondering, kind of existential questions, or was the book itself kind of what like brought that interest along?
I was on the track to, well, I had liked spiritual things. I was spiritually oriented. I was Roman Catholic, but I thought what they do was a lot of dogma and it concealed the truth within Christianity. So when I came across this book, I don't know how I got it. I think someone gave it to me and I read it. There it started because in the book there was a mentioning of someone having a near-death experience and a life review. The life review is a very special part of an NDE. Not everyone has this life review because not all NDEs are equal. They are all different. But a lot of people have them anyway. So life reviews, and you can see what is happening in your life from the first start until you die. And the interesting thing there was that this person was a woman. She was not judged at all, and that is something that really stuck with me because in Christianity there is a lot of judgment. And Jesus comes back at the second coming, and he judges everyone, and he separates the good from the bad, and then the good go to heaven and the bad either go to purgatory or to hell and forever. And that is something that I didn't like, but moreover I thought that was wrong. Something in me said that that was wrong all along, all the time that I was a Roman Catholic. And then when I read this book and I saw this, then I thought these people know what they are talking about because I think they really have been there. So that started it.
It's kind of interesting. So you said you kind of always knew there was a fundamental flaw. To kind of paraphrase, like you never believed in the whole heaven and hell. You always thought there was something off about it. I'm curious, like, what do you think? And I just asked someone this the other day, but what do you think is like the psychological effects of like you teach a young child about a certain religion and you tell them if you don't follow God's rules, you're going to hell. What do you think it really does to that child long term when they're picturing like, oh no, I broke one of God's rules, they're starting to imagine themselves, burning alive. I didn't know we'd go so deep so quick, but like, do you think how do you think this impacts people? And have you ever thought of what a solution would be? I suppose it's a loaded question. My apologies.
It's a very loaded question, but it's a good question anyway, because, you know, that's you hit on something very essential. In many religions, not only in Christianity, we have hell. It makes people afraid. It scares the hell out of them. And I know for sure, and I know people also in my own family, because I came from a very, very strict Catholic family, that some people were really afraid of dying. And I know also from all my talks and all my encounters with people who've had near death experiences that some people were so afraid of hell and purgatory that when they had their brush with death, they went into this hellish kind of environment. But I think you create that because of your fear. There are distressing NDEs. We're going to dive now deep. And what we know now for sure, it's difficult to research them because not everyone who has had a distressing NDE will raise a finger and say, I've had such an experience, because it is stigmatizing. But we know for sure from the people that we can speak and come forward is that you cannot say that bad people have a distressful NDE and good people have a blissful one. It can happen to anyone. And what we do seem to see, I have to say it very carefully, is that your anxieties in life and your fears in life might pop up in the very start of your NDE. So if you have been very afraid of hell and purgatory in whatever religion you're raised, it might be something that might pop up in your NDE. Having said that, I want to stress also for your listeners that, I don't believe there is a hell, because I think there is only one place. There is not duality like on earth, but there is a unity out there, and it's all very nice. And I know also that there were a few NDEers, and they are also in my book. In my book, I write a lot of quotes from NDEers. There's hundreds of quotes in there. And two of them that are in my book really explicitly say that there is no hell and purgatory, because one heard in his NDE explicitly, he was told that there is no hell and purgatory. And the other heard explicitly that we all go home, and home is not where you live here on earth, but that's on the other side. That's our real home. And so we all go there. And it doesn't make sense that there is a kind of a hell, because there is a unity. Why would some part of unity be in distress? That's doesn't figure. So the theory is really that there is some kind of collective unconscious that pops up, or your own conscious. And I think, but now I'm talking for myself, is that on one side, religions have a good side. That's where they talk about love. But on the other side, when they talk about fear or hell to make people afraid, so they do what they want you to do, then I think they go the wrong direction. The other side of life has only to do with love.
So, what are your thoughts on, as far as religion? There's good aspects, there's bad aspects. I'm not sure how much it's intentional or not. Do you think there's an aspect where at one point it was kind of like a useful stepping stone, but at a certain point it almost becomes kind of like the crabs in the bucket, like to a certain extent, right? To where now it's like we're gaining intelligence, at a certain point, we're already questioning religions. And let me try to simplify this. My apologies. Like, nothing wrong with religion at all. But do you think if there's any sort of fears and anxieties attached to that, when you're permanently past the veil, that there's any sort of like purification process where like it will ultimately be eradicated?
You know, I always say, if there is someone telling you that they exactly know what happens on the other side, then I tell you to turn on your heels and run away as quickly as possible.
Oh, of
No
course.
one
Just
can know.
just pure
No,
speculation.
yeah, I know, but I wouldn't want people to think that I know what exactly happens on the other side. What I do think, but that's my own personal opinion after having spoken to so many NDEs, is that NDEs are a first phase in the afterlife. And it's a very nice phase in general, because distressing NDEs are just a small subset, but we can't neglect them. But in general, I think we all go there on to this wonderful place with only love. Also, the people that have a distressing NDE, it will not last. There's so many stories of people who have had a distressing NDE, where they thought of love, where they asked for love, or just like it is, that they are rescued or they're taken out of this place. And I want to stress also that there are indications that you can well, you have some kind of influence over what you're seeing. And I'd like to give an example. I have a friend in the US who had an NDE after a car accident. She was in her NDE, she started hanging in this velvety darkness, something that is seen more often. Most people find it okay because there's a lot of love. It's soothing, it's wonderful. There's a feeling of loss of anxiety. It's wonderful there. Some people fear it because they feel it's spooky or something, and then they feel that it's a kind of distressing aspect to it. But she had a wonderful time there, and after a while she was thinking, okay, I've seen this long enough, it's nice here, I'd like to see something else. And then something came along with brushes, it seemed, she said, like a big hand, and it painted like it went like this over the canvas, sort of. And it painted a wonderful environment with rolling hills and wonderful trees and butterflies and streams and what she wanted to see. So you have influence over what you want to see. That is what I know from NDEs. And so I think if you really want to escape this feeling of anxiety that you might have, or that only a few people have, then that is possible.
There certainly could be something as far as, people say your thoughts create reality, which is true. You could either choose to control your paradigm or you could be a feather in the wind. And who's
Yeah.
to say one's better than the other, right? Depending on circumstance, but perhaps it could work the same way on the other side. Um, what do you think, shifting gears a little bit here, because I'm sure you've had incredible findings. I know you've talked about in your near death experience research. What do you think about pre-birth memories that are sometimes shown to near-death experiencers? I've talked to a few of these people myself, and I find it so fascinating. Do you believe, there's a part of it where we're kind of choosing certain aspects before we come in?
Life, what we have here on earth is in a body, and that's temporary. It starts someone and it ends someone. But before and after, we continue. So also before our birth, we are somewhere, or there is something of us. And what that is, I don't know. It's not clear. But there are a lot of stories of NDEers who have seen what they have chosen to do or where to be before they were born. There are examples of people who had to go back again. They are in their NDE. They want to stay there, of course, because it's a wonderful place with a lot of love. You don't find that on Earth, so typically they don't want to go back. Some people do, but in some cases they have to convince people that they need to go back again. And then there are stories where they are shown what they chose before they came into this baby body that they became to be as a grown up. And then they say, okay, yeah, I remember that we made this agreement. I wanted to do this. I wanted to learn that or something. And then they go back into their body finally. But that shows you that there was a decision made before. And there are wonderful stories of people who have had explicit a choice that is really very nice. I don't know if you know the story of Betty Guadagno. She had a awful life, like with parents that were addicts, drug addicts. There was incest in her family, it was a dysfunctional family, it was poverty. She had to prostitute herself in order to get money to do the drugs. And then she had her overdose, and that almost killed her. Then in her NDE, she's shown what she chose herself, and she did it in a very nice way. She said, I was shown as if I was in a supermarket with a big cart, and I could choose my experiences, and the experiences she chose, she knew that she had to be in this dysfunctional family. And she thought, well, poverty is nice. Let's put that in the cart. And prostitution, okay, let's put that in the cart as well. And incest, I want to feel what that is. So she had a full cart of all those horrible things. So she chose them. Then when she really realized that it was her own choice to go through all these awful things, it made her sort of okay. But she didn't want to go back again. And she was shown that she did have to go back again. So she went back again, and she is a wonderful person. Stopped using drugs with little help from the other side, and she leads a very nice life.
That kind of brings us to like purpose and meaning, right? Like we're intelligent enough to ponder our own mortality, to search for like purpose and meaning. Sometimes I wonder if that's a result of having relatively low requirements for like survival instincts, because we live significantly different than animals, right? We still have a survival instinct, but if we were searching for shelter in the winters and fending off predators constantly, like how much would we really be having that kind of intellectual conflict, right? So as far as like purpose and meaning, um, I'm curious what your thoughts are on the purpose and meaning for human beings, but also, if you don't mind, what's the purpose of like other animals? I asked someone recently, like, what's the purpose of like a raccoon? Like what is their purpose,
Um,
in your opinion?
Yeah, I know. I'm trying to find out how to say this. I think the way Earth developed is just there is a free will. There's go ahead. Is something evolved. It was not like we need a raccoon or so because of this and this reason. No, the raccoon just was developed out of whatever you have, and then it came there. It's a long track before they became a raccoon. Same with humans. My view of why we are on Earth, because actually that's your question, and that also has to do with the raccoon. I think on the other side, there is only wonder and bliss and love, but it's sort of to say it's kind of dull because it's just only that. Nothing happens there. There's no development, there is no change, and it seems to be more dimensions than we have here. So you have more possibilities. You are more free in a way. It's just be, I am, or God is. It's not doing anything. Therefore, I think that God wanted to create an environment with limitations where things had to develop, like there is time that only goes in one direction. If you're on the other side, what you learn from NDE is time is not an issue. You can, all time is there at the same time. You can look at all instances in history at the same time. You can see what happened in 300 years ago, and the same time you can see what happened now. And you can see everything. So there are no limitations there, but there are limitations here. And that makes it more exciting to live. All the things you go through in life and your listeners go through life, and myself, these are things, problems we have to go through, and it has to do with how we cope with each other. It's sort of exciting. It's for people who are in distress, having no money, or are in a difficult situation, being in drugs or whatever. It's awful. But seen from the other side, it's just interesting to see how life plays out. There is free will. There's no interference, or I think, or maybe only incidentally. But God lets us do what we want to do, and it's our choice. And that's also what is on the other side. There is no judgment. If we go there, even if we have done horrible things, there is no punishment, because it is like a movie for God to see how everything plays out. It may sound very strange for you or your listeners, but this is what I sometimes hear from NDEers. There's a few NDEers who said to me in a group discussion, they said, God just wanted to go to the movies, sitting there, enjoying how that would be, how people work together or cope together, and not interfering. Because if you go to the movies, you can't interfere. You just see what is being played out. Same for God. And the thing is, we are God. We all are God. Also, the animals. That's what, and a lot of NDEers say, NDErs say we are very closely connected to each other. Some people go even further. They say we are actually one. I am you and you are me, and the listeners are also the same. We are all of the same substance. We are divine. We all have God within us. And some people even say we are all God. So what happens, the raccoon is also God. You're part of God. The raccoon is part of God. And I sometimes also picture it as follows, that if a child is born, there is a vacancy there. Something needs to go in there because it can't walk around like a zombie. So a spirit needs to go in there. And who is the only one to give the spirit? There's only one, and that's God. I don't like the word God because that's religiously connotated. So you can also insert the words source or spirit, the big spirit, or whatever. But that goes into everyone, also into the raccoon. And the raccoon was developed how it went. And we developed also in this way. Maybe a little help along the way here and there. Maybe the dinosaurs had to be extinct because they are too big to manage and had too little brains to be any interest in making art or whatever. So they made maybe humans out of apes.
I've certainly heard about, the theory that potentially there's one source consciousness, the implications of that. As far as I know, I think there's multiple different versions of like solipsism, some that sound ridiculous and some that are more plausible. Kind of like what you're saying, one source consciousness comes in, filling kind of that void, like almost how water will fill in. Like if there's the smallest opening, it's going to get filled, right? Like it almost seems inevitable in that way. Do you think that souls, if you would call it that, like to just give it a name for the sake of conversation, do you think that like a part of a soul comes in neutral every time? And that kind of like the variable is the hardwiring of the body that they're in and the environment? Or do you think that if we live again, that you kind of carry on past life experience might get translated into like instincts in your next life? Have you ever thought about this?
It's a difficult question. It's interesting though to think about it, and I do that too. I go into extremes thinking about unity because that's something that I find logical. Let me just tell you, one of the NDEers who had her NDE, and then once she was out of her body, she felt there was no anxiety, no pain because it's attached to the body, and you leave that. The only thing there is consciousness. But then she went on and she said, even my consciousness, the identity that I seem to have, would disappear because I would dissolve in this big soup, perhaps, that is called the Godhead. So God is something we go into, and in God there is no ego. There is your personality, to say something different than ego, but ego and personality are sort of the same. It will disappear. That's what I believe. My personality, my ego will disappear too, because I think my ego or my personality are the roles that I play and the roles that come with this body that I inhabit. Because this body is white, I have white skin. I have had parents that have had enough money to pay everything that I needed. I didn't have any problems. I didn't have poverty. I wasn't discriminated. Those things make me uh, like I am. And other people are formed by their body as well. And on top of that, so that's the genes, but it's also the nurture. Even if you have had a white body and you are in a dysfunctional family, like I spoke about Betty Guadano, then still you will have a difficult life. And there will be anxieties along the way. So whatever happens to people, it's based on the body they inhabit and the way they are brought up. So nurture and nature, things develop. So later on, if people have children, there will be genes in those. They will be raised in a certain way, and someone needs to go in there, and that's God. So God goes into that child, into the other child, the children in Gaza, the children in Israel, the children in Russia and in Ukraine, and they are learned to fight each other, nurture. Just to mention also the conflicts that are on earth that should stop, because another thing that I learned from NDEers is that what you do to an other, you will eventually feel yourself as if you are the other. So let it be nice things, because when you do nice things to others, you will also feel those things. That's what I learned from life reviews. The life review comes in a very special way. It's not only that you're an onlooker to see what is happening in your life, in your own life, but you feel what is going on in the lives of the people you acted with or on. So the receiver, you are the receiver of your actions, and you feel what those actions mean or cause to the receiver. And not only one receiver, you will feel everything from everyone. It's something you cannot wrap your head around. But this is said over and over again. And I find it logical if you think of things being one. There's only unity. If there's only unity, then of course I can feel what you feel right at this moment and what your listeners feel right at this moment.
Do you think it's like legitimately forbidden knowledge to know the secrets of the universe or consciousness? Or do you think maybe perhaps there's an aspect where like we could figure it out and maybe we're supposed to, or maybe it doesn't matter whether we do or not? Like, what's your take on that?
That's another wonderful question. I've been wondering myself, what is the purpose of us having brains and people finding out quantum mechanics, because that shows you that that the observer has influence over what is happening, and that two particles, I don't even know how they are called, when you take them apart for miles, if you do something to one of those particles, the other one will react the same way. It boggles my mind. But those things are sort of maybe also what you'll find in NDEs or so. But whether it's forbidden knowledge or not, because if you think it's forbidden knowledge, then we should not know it. We should not understand it. It will be made in such a way that we cannot understand. Maybe that's the case. But maybe, and that's why I also have thought about this, maybe by scientists who come up with quantum mechanics and try to reconcile that with Einstein's theory of relativity and then come up with multiple dimensions, maybe we need to understand or find out that there are other dimensions. Having said that, I also remember what one of the NDEers in my book says. When she was on the other side of life, she said, I knew everything. It was so clear to me. All the questions I had were answered. And I didn't know how it was possible that being in my body, I couldn't see it because it's in plain sight. It's just, it's hidden in plain sight. We should be able to see it, but we don't see it. So that's what she said. And I don't know what that means, but apparently there is something that is out there that defines what the whole thing is. We should be able to see it, but we can't see it. I don't know why. But then she goes on and she said, I knew I had to go back to my body again because that was said to me. And I did want to go back to my body. That's what she said, because she had a child to look after. And then she said, I'm going to remember one sentence that really will give information of what is out there, because it would be the essence of what is out there. And then that one sentence is, all is everything and everything is one. All is everything and everything is one. If I say that sentence, I do that so often, I still don't know what it means. I understand that there is a oneness. Again, she says it also, like so many other. But all is everything and everything is one. There are four words there. And if you translate that in my language, our language is not so eloquent with a number of words, so we have only two words to say now, or to say everything. So it would be difficult to translate that sentence. I think we need to go on. So quantum mechanics, people that study that, and all other physics, I think they should continue doing that. And I think that people looking into NDEs, because that gives you a little peek into the afterlife. Maybe after another 10, 20 years of NDEs, new NDEs, maybe we will find out. And I think we can come far. Yes.
I tend to think the same thing.
And maybe to add a little thing there, because if you really consider more dimensions than only the three space dimensions we have and the time dimension, the time space continuum we have, that's difficult for us. It's, if you do an experiment, you just think of that there is a flat land with flat people in it. They don't know what height is. They know what time is, because time moves in the same way as for us. And then suddenly one of these people pops out of this flat land and comes into our environment and then sees us sitting here. They see volume. They see you have volume. They see that I have volume. That they see that they can look further than they could when they were in their flat land. Now they have to go back again. How will they explain what the third dimension is? The third space dimension is. The people there will not be able to understand it. Moreover, there are no concepts or words to explain what he had seen, because he wouldn't understand. And that's the same thing with NDEers. They say, I've seen something that I cannot understand and I cannot explain with words. We don't have concepts and words enough to explain what I've seen. It is more complete, but I don't know how that is. I can't put it into words. That's what they say.
you've been researching near-death experiences for what, a decade and a half? How long have you been doing this? Like 15 years or something?
Like, I think more than 25 years now. I think maybe 30, something like that.
Oh wow, I undershot that, huh?
It's no problem.
So in all of your years researching this stuff, like, is there any personal favorite like aspects or like specific stories that have stood out? Like if I could give an example, when I talk to someone like John Davis or Aaron Green, like their stories are so amazing. Like for some reason it just like encapsulates me, and it's so fascinating. What's your favorite thing that you found in all of your research? Does anything stand out?
Wow, that's difficult. There are two things popping into my mind now. There's this story about that has to do with time. We spoke about that just before. That's why it just pops into my mind. There is this guy whose friend just passed away 3 days before, and the guy is in distress because it's a very good friend, and he has problems in itself, and he starts drinking, using pills. Well, eventually he dies as well, and then he doesn't know that he died, but he pops out of his body. He has his near-death experience. In his near-death experience, he meets this friend that just passed away 3 days before. And he says, okay, if I can see you, then if you're dead, and I know that for sure, then I must be dead too. And then they start a conversation, and this friend of his knows that this NDEer is very interested in things that have to do with time. And he said, well, I'll show you how fluid time is, how it is different from on Earth. And I'll show you the time of Michelangelo, because he also knew that this NDEer was very interested in art, the art of Michelangelo, the Renaissance artist in Italy, 300 years or something ago. Suddenly they are in the Sistine Chapel where Michelangelo painted the ceiling. And this NDE is like flabbergasted. He is like, how is that possible that I'm here? And then the answer is, well, time is different. We can go anytime. And then for a fleeting moment, he becomes Michelangelo. And that is really, that pops his mind. Finally, he goes back to his body. He has to go back again. And this story, he says, I don't understand how that's possible. Now, having said that there's only one, that makes possible. You can see whatever life there is. You can be whatever life there is. You can be the queen of Egypt if you want to be. You can be the woman that sells meat on the market in London in 1675 or whatever. You can be anyone. And the other story is of a Dutch woman after the war. She was a very small child. And in the Netherlands, we were a war-torn country. There was nothing here, lack of a lot of things, and certainly of luxurious goods like sweets or so. Now, the mother, for some other reason, has a few sweets and some sweets and gives it to the child to share with friends in school. And she did that. Now, later in her life, she has her medical critical situation, and then she has her near death experience. She has her life review. She goes back to that one moment and she sees how that school friend was thinking, wow, I'm so valuable that I can have these sweets. And she feels it from the friend's point of view, but she also notices that the mother of the child is affected as well in a positive way, and that there are ripples that go beyond the place that you are or that she was, but in general that you are. Then there's this other moment that she sees another child in school who had lice. And again, there was nothing in the Netherlands, so no shampoos to get rid of the lice. They had to be squeezed to death manually. So the school friend asks, can you help me? And then she made a big fuss out of it, the NDE. And in her life review, she goes back to that moment and she feels the pain that she caused the school friend. And it's as if she stabs herself in the heart. The point is that she said, and that really struck me, is that she said, that was painful and that was really painful. But something that was more painful than that was the fact that I had options. I saw that there were other possibilities that I could have done, other choices I could have made, and those choices would have brought much more love into the world. And if and forgoing those one of those other options, that really hurt me. That's what she said. And doing research in NDEs, that also changed my life. And this story certainly did, because you understand that whatever you do to others, you do to yourself. But you always have options. So if you think of something nasty to do to someone, or something that doesn't bring any love, maybe hesitate. That's why NDEs are also important. For me, they make me hesitate if I do something that I think later on maybe I will regret that. I'm certainly not saying that I'm a saint or so, but I know for sure that, oh, and I hear that from other NDEs too. If you study them, if you listen to them, if you hear a lot of them, it changes your life as well. You don't have to have had an NDE yourself in order to change your life. Maybe you too, you understand this because you have spoken and interviewed so many NDEs. You must feel the same way.
It's hard to tell. So I've had a near-death experience myself as well,
Okay. Makes
and
it difficult, different.
little different, yeah. And it's hard to say, I've had the conversation. It's hard to say because I feel like I've always been like quite compassionate of people, so it's hard to say like how much it factors in from the near-death experience. I'm sure it factors in a little bit, but I always because of my experience, I always just have like a fundamental like respect for people. We're all in the same boat. No one here knows what the hell's going on. So I don't know. I love people. So I would like to talk with you about near-death experiences becoming a religion and everything like that. I'm super interested in that conversation. But one quick, like kind of more fun question before we do it. Um, so do you think in terms of like the planet, right? So, you mentioned other dimensions and things like this, the way that time works differently. Do you think certain planets are like super organisms? Do you think they have some sort of like hold some sort of consciousness in the way that that we do? Because if you think about it, human beings, we host life for other microorganisms. So perhaps the planets are doing the same thing for us.
Hmm. But it's an interesting point of view. I've heard that before. And, since I believe that the source is in everything, it's also in the stars, in the planets, in the chair you're sitting on. It's not only in animals, it's in everything. And everything is part of this oneness. So, to some extent, I do think there is a conscious, perhaps in planets. I know that there are NDEs that say see trees and know that they have a glow around them. They are organisms. They live. So they are a little bit more remote from us than animals. But we all developed from the one cell that started living long ago. So I do believe that source is in everything. So in that way, it also the planets and the stars and everything has a conscious.
If you were to zoom out as far as you could to where like the planets, the galaxies, the way those structures work, do you think they start to work in the same way that like microscopic, protons, neutrons, the way that like smaller things work for us, like do you think the whole universe could actually just be like supporting a larger organism? Like what if our whole universe is inside of a larger being?
That's funny that you asked that because as a child, I was always thinking about when I was on the beach lying there in the sun. I thought of these kind of things. I tried to venture out beyond that and think, universe, maybe that's just part of something even bigger. And then my mind blew because I couldn't conceive of that. And it was like as if something was overflowing in myself. So I suddenly stopped thinking about that. But I did think about those things when I was a child, and I don't know. It could be. I am astonished by everything that has to do with our universe, with the cosmos and the things they discover. And it is so amazing. It's so amazing. The black holes that out there, they are so big. There are suns that are like billions times bigger than our sun. We cannot even start understanding how that is. It's so magnificent. And we think we are important here on this little earth.
You bring up a good point, like if you think of the size of your body compared to the size of the entire earth and like how big of a difference that is, and then the size of the earth compared to our sun, like no comparison, like significantly larger. And then to your point, our sun, there's like mega suns out there, these stars that are so, even if you could try to attribute a number to it, like it's unfathomable. Like what kind of life comes off of a planet that is like moving around a sun that's a trillion times larger than our sun, you know?
Yeah.
So you have said in the past, you had done a talk about how near-death experiences shouldn't turn into a religion. I don't want to misquote you, but was that your opinion that you think they should not turn into a religion? I suppose just as a starting point.
Yes, that's exactly what I said, and it's exactly what I mean.
Would you say that the primary reason for a religion is to provide answers for the afterlife? I know some people argue that religion is about morals and values. I kind of see that as secondary, to be completely honest. I feel as though the primary reason for a religion is to provide answers about the afterlife. And so my question is, we may or may not agree on this, but if near-death experiencers, if what they're seeing is real, then I suppose like why not have that as a religion? With the exception of people that could just make something up and become like false prophets. But I would love to hear your take. Why don't you think it should become a religion?
First of all, the religions that I know, and I've studied five major religions, they mainly talk about earthly life and how to act here. There's not very much about how the afterlife looks like. If there is anything about the afterlife, then it's it's there's hell there. You don't want to go there, so you need to behave well, and we know how you should behave. And there is heaven, but how it looks like, it's not really spelled out. In Islam, though, there is a lot of Well, there is more about how it looks like. There is a source of milk or whatever honey there is, and you can drink of it, and you will always stay young and things like that. So there is something about that, but mainly those are is not a big part of the religion. It's mainly about how you have to live here. So I think there's a difference with NDEs. NDEs are mainly about the other side, and it's mainly the first part because many NDEers have seen a border they cannot cross because if they do that, they can't go back again. That's being told to them. Don't go through that door. You are not allowed to go through the door. Don't go beyond that little stream you see there, or don't go over the fence, or don't do these things. But these are all kinds of borders that you cannot cross. So what is really out there? What if you really die? We don't know. That's why I always say if someone knows how it really looks like, don't believe them. No one can know that. But we know the first part, and that's the sort of the first part of the afterlife, and that's mainly what NDEs talk about. They do talk about in at length sometimes about how they died, like the car crash. It's like a very long story, or how they were taken to the hospital after their heart attack or whatever. But the main thing is what they experienced in this other worldly environment. So that makes it different, maybe with respect to religions. But where I said, don't turn it into a religion, is more like in religions, people say they know how things work and how it is. There's a dogma coming from it. And I don't think with NDEs, we should go there. And I will explain to you because there are people that talk about layers or spheres that we have to go through, or that we have to learn here something on Earth because some people are far advanced than others, or that they are old souls, or something like that, or reincarnation in itself. I think there are so many people who have had a near death experience that don't feel anything about reincarnation, or that haven't seen layers or spheres, that you shouldn't be able to say things about that. And what I try to say in that speech is that we should stick to the main to the core of what NDEers say. And what NDEers say is that love and unconditional love are the most important things there are. That is something we should try to copy. We should try to align ourselves with the light, because the light is non-judgmental. It is full of love for anyone, no matter who, and that we are part of one, or that we are at least very closely connected with each other. Those are the two things that really stick out. And things like spheres or vibrations or reincarnation, reincarnation, the percentage of people that had an NDE and that believe in reincarnation is more or less the same as in the general public. So that means that it is not the case that you suddenly start to believe more into, or yeah, that there is reincarnation if you've had an NDE. That's not the case.
What you're saying is your concern is that like people's personal interpretations of the love and the light could end up turning into an idea of how that light works, how the love works, like it depending on the person who's talking about it, there's so many openings for people's interpretations to turn into like a new truth. And because not everyone agrees on everything, it's kind of opening the door to like muddy the waters. Is that kind of what you're saying?
Yes, yes, exactly. Because if you talk about spheres, you could say, well, I know that I'm in a higher sphere than you are, or packs of souls, that some souls work together, then I'm not in the same pack as you are because of this and that reason. We should be very careful with that, because that sounds already like a religion. Religions have fought each other because you are from another religion than I am, so you're bad. You won't go to heaven because you're not of the same same level as I am. So the moment we talk about levels and groups of souls or levels or vibrations, I'm of a higher vibration than you are, things like that. That's we shouldn't go that way. And that's what I mean. We should.
Almost, and I'm so sorry for cutting you off again, but
No,
almost like opening the door for people to proclaim themselves to be some sort of prophets or have that authority in some way.
yes, yeah, and then because then they become well, they wind up in some kind of situation where they can say to others, they exert power over others by saying these kind of things, and that is not what the light is. If you really listen to NDEers, then it is that the light loves everyone. Everyone is important. Everyone is just as important as someone else. Your president is not more important than the beggar in the street in New York. Uh, the king of our country or my prime minister is not worth more than I am. No, we are all of the same essence, the same material. If you, no, it's not materials, the same substance. We are all source, and the source leads our lives. So yeah, we shouldn't do these kind of things. We shouldn't go back into this situation that we had in, for instance, in Christianity, in Roman Catholicism, where the Pope was on the top of everything and could say that if you don't buy this from me, then you will go to hell. Things like that. We shouldn't go that way. Not even close. Not even close.
I came into this thinking there was some things that we actually disagree on, but the more you kind of explain it, I actually agree with you more than I realized. Like I said, I do still want to emphasize, I think the primary, if there was a problem with it, I think it's like, people appointing themselves in places of authority, false prophets. I do already think with near death experiences, I think it's such an unchallenged field. Not to say that a lot of people are lying, but I started to realize like it's so unchallenged because it would be socially inappropriate to where I believe the door has been opened for anyone to claim anything at any time and who's going to really challenge them. I mean, by now there's got to be at least one or two people that are at the very least sprinkling in extra details. And God forbid, I suppose, if it did turn into a religion, now these people are apparently, they're the all knowing, they've seen the light and stuff. So the unfortunate part about that is that I believe most of them are telling the truth, like flat out. But the more people that want to sprinkle in extra stuff or hop on the bandwagon because they know they're not going to be challenged, where does that lead? Like, does that lead into the people who are telling the truth being almost discredited because now you have all these like charlatans out there? That's kind of my take on it, But to be clear, I do believe, 99% of the people.
Let me just give you an example. I read an NDE story somewhere, and I knew immediately that was false because this NDEer said that she was in a hospital in New York recovering while she had her NDE there. And then Jesus came to her. Well, Jesus is oftentimes seen in NDEs, but so are deities of other religions like Krishna or Al Mahdi in Islam. But Jesus came to her and said, I'm so saddened by this city, New York, because there is so much, many people just openly gay. And I thought, when I heard that, it really gave me a lot of pain because that I knew immediately that's not the real one. Because what I understand from all the NDEs that I read is that there is only love and there's love for everyone. There are even stories of NDEers, and there's a whole book about NDEers that are gay that have had such nice experience, such a beautiful experience, where they even met their grandparents. This woman, she met her grandparents, and they said to her, so the grandparents were already dead, and she met them in the NDE, and the grandparents said, we are so sorry for the way we treated you because you must have had a very difficult time in our family in this particular part of our country where we were very religious and we gave you so much pain. And then, well, she accepted those apologies sort of, and she went off uh, for the rest of her NDE. And then she saw Jesus. And Jesus, she asked Jesus, will you still love me knowing that I'm gay? And then the answer was, of course, my child. And I love you, I love you, I love you. 3 times he said that, and then embraced her in such a wonderful embrace and took her through the universe. And there are more of these stories. So if you read a story where there is a demeaning of a person or a group of people or whatever, you know immediately that's not the real NDE. That cannot be the real NDE.
It's kind of funny you bring that up because even Christianity, or well, I'm not a religion expert, so I don't know if it's Christianity or Catholicism, but one of the two, perhaps both, they seem to be kind of changing the rules around too. Isn't that kind of interesting? Like, makes you kind of wonder, how many times has their rule book changed over time? So I guess that's like a rhetorical question.
But it's going very gradually in Roman Catholicism. It's people that are gay are shouldn't be expelled from the church, but they cannot take the Holy Host, and they well they can be in the church, but they cannot do everything, and they should refrain from consuming their gaiety. So that's what they say. That's literally what it says. So it's gradually changing. I don't know how many hundreds of years we need to wait until they really find out that it's no problem. It's no problem on the other side. Nothing is a problem on the other side. Even if you would, let me put it really extreme, even if you would kill a lot of people, there is no judgment on the other side. That's what I understand. That's the whole thing. It is just to experience life. That's the only thing. And of course, if you kill a lot of people and you go into your life review, you will not be very happy because you will see that you have had options, other options that would have given a lot more love into the world. And you will feel awful not having chosen those options. So it is not like we can go about and do whatever we want because we're not judged at all. No, love, that's the main point. That's where it all evolves around. That's what is important.
Yeah.
Align yourself with the light, and the light is pure love.
You have said in the past that, life is a zero-sum game. Like you're saying, like you go out and do some crazy stuff that it doesn't matter. But I feel like there's a part of it where it doesn't matter, but it does. Because it might not matter. You're not going to go to hell for it, but like you could potentially experience, the receiving end of that. So it kind of does at the same time.
True, true. You will feel what it feels as if you are the receiver. That's true, and that you will find all these things in my book, Impressions of Near Death Experience, with all those quotes. And the point is that if someone judges you, it is you yourself, no one else. The other side, there are even stories where someone was very harsh on himself, and then the light said, you don't have to be so harsh. Just look what it was. Just see how your relation was. That's all. Even then, the light will take your side and not to make you judge yourself so harshly.
Almost helping you learn how to forgive yourself and everything too,
Yeah.
because I feel like that's important. None of us are perfect. If you could ask one question to the person watching this video right now, what would it be?
Do you realize that you will feel others when you are in your afterlife? And it doesn't need to be the big things. What I understood also from one of the NDEs, it's the small things too that count, especially the small things. Because this particular NDE had her life review first time. She had it twice in the same NDE. She had her life review, and that all seemed very nice. It was nothing very special. She didn't kill many. She didn't kill people. She was kind of nice to everyone. But then she went over it again. She had to go over it again. And then she saw the small moments, the insignificant moments, perhaps, where we just walk past someone who is in distress without smiling or without saying nice words. And it can be someone that goes home then and is beating up his wife or so, or the children or something. And if you would have smiled or said something nice to them, then they would, you could have brought them in a different situation. It is really these kind of small things, seemingly small things. That would be my question. Do you realize that small things are important? You don't have to be big, doing big things, big, important things. The small things count as well.
Thank you so much for coming on. I've had an absolute blast having this conversation. By all means, you're more than welcome back anytime, so we would be happy to have you again. To everyone else watching, thank you so much for your sliver of time. This has been ours. And Rob, thanks again. We're going to have all your stuff in the description, by the way.
Thank you. It was wonderful to be with you, and I loved your questions. They're really deep.
Appreciate it, man. We try our best, you know. So luckily, I'm very passionate about it, and so I think that really helps carry it through. But thank you so much again, man. Appreciate it.
Thank you too.
All right, peace out.